it's more a signal that a lot of companies are using just to say, like, we're not falling behind technologically. Like we're participating in this too.
You are listening to the Mindful Business Security Show, brought to you by Fosivity, where we answer your questions and simplify information security for small businesses. Get the clarity you need to focus on the things that matter.
Well, hello. You're listening to the Mindful Business Security Show. I'm your host, Accidental CISO. Welcome. I'm glad to have you listening today. I know I always have to say it, but please be sure to subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app. It really helps us out, and you'll be sure to catch the next episode. One of the big technologies, if not the biggest, of the past year is AI. And while the underlying technology has been developing for a long time now, it's reached a point where it's broadly usable, and we're starting to see mass adoption. So in this episode, we're going to talk about what you should know about AI and what it is and what it isn't, and some of the risks that you should be considering as you decide to use AI-based tools in your small business. My guest host this week is an old friend. He's been in tech for over 20 years now, and I've had the pleasure of knowing him for at least 15 of those years. Over the course of his career, he's held a wide range of roles, from deploying and managing physical and cloud infrastructure to software engineering to professional services. If that variety of roles wasn't enough, he's worked in those roles in many different industry verticals, including education, healthcare, legal, security, retail, banking, insurance, automotive, marketing, just to name a few. He's always had the knack for bridging technical and business teams and focusing on business outcomes. For the last 6 years, he's been a solutions engineer at Data Robot, helping clients all over the world implement artificial intelligence and machine learning services. And when he's not working, he has an impressive collection of vintage and retro video games, computers, and electronics. I'm excited to have you on the show today. Thank you for joining me. Welcome, Brent Hinks.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, man, it is awesome. Like I said, Brent is an old friend, so this is really, really cool. I've had lots of new friends, guest hosts on this, but this is an old friend from almost what seems like a past life. First and foremost, tell me a little bit about your collection of vintage and retro gear. Like, how big is this collection, and what's your favorite game or device?
Oh man, it's it's pretty large. It's focused mostly on older video game consoles. It kind of started when a close friend of mine found his old NES in his parents' attic, and he sold it to me. And then I thought to myself, well, maybe I'll rebuild my old game collection from when I was a kid. So I went back to Atari, and from there I started getting into some of the old, like the Atari 400 and 600 home computers, and like the TI-99, and so it's in terms of software, I've got close to 2,000 games mostly, and then probably about 100 different devices and consoles. The Atari is still the 2600. That's still my favorite.
I mean, how'd you end up getting like into this hobby to begin with?
Yeah, it was really just, it was nostalgia, and reconnecting with my inner child and realizing, hey, I actually have enough money now to buy all the cool stuff that I never got to play with when I was a kid. So I've got, I got really into like old basic programming again for a little bit, kind of where I cut my teeth as a child. And yeah, it's just been fun to kind of live in that world a little bit and share it with my kids.
That is kind of cool to go back and show them, and take them for that real life in-person journey through sort of the technology and computing experience that we have. I've got another friend who's big into music and movies and those types of things, and like they spend a lot of time with their daughter watching old movies from the 80s and that sort of thing, and listening to old music and playing LP albums and that kind of stuff. And it's just such a quality time thing for them. It's so wholesome, and I love to see that sort of thing. So we switch gears here just a little bit, and jump into AI. Because the old technology, now we're going to meet it with some of the newest technology, I guess you could say. Uh, Small business owners or leaders in larger organizations, maybe executives or VPs and folks like that, they're starting to be bombarded by AI this, AI that, like all sorts of marketing campaigns and information. Can you sort of define, what the practical differences are between AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning, ML?
Sure. So, um, AI is sort of the broad umbrella term for any computer system where you're giving it the tools to teach itself or perform some kind of a human like action. Um, it's I think a lot of what makes up the AI space is still a lot of research type work. Machine learning is a subset of AI that has really grown recently, and I think it's kind of taken over the AI name, even though it's as I said, a subset. And you pointed this out during the intro. I thought was it was interesting to kind of latch onto that for a little bit. The techniques, the math and algorithms and everything behind a lot of the machine learning that we're seeing now, they've been around for a long time. Back going back to like the 50s. It's just that now we've gotten to a point where compute can scale so much and so cheaply that now we can start to build these huge systems, like Chat GPT or what have you. Made up of billions of parameters inside this huge neural network. Um, Machine learning comes in a few different flavors. Some of them have more business value, I think, than others. So there's some of the more what people would call classic techniques, like supervised machine learning, like techniques for making predictions. So in a supervised machine learning case, we would have a big data set that makes up a bunch of observations of something we might want to predict, maybe uh, transaction fraud at a bank, something like that. We'll have a huge data set with a bunch of transactions that are fraudulent and a bunch that are not fraudulent, and we'll feed them into the machine learning algorithm, and it will, based on the labels that we've added onto there, it'll build a model that can predict for new values what looks like fraud and what doesn't. Um, there's unsupervised learning, where you just throw a bunch of data into the model, and it will do something with it based on patterns that it recognizes. Like there might be like clustering algorithms, where maybe you want to feed in a pool of your customers and break them up into segments, to figure out maybe how to target different segments with different marketing campaigns. And then there's reinforcement learning, where um, you're giving the model a goal that it has to achieve, and you're creating rewards and punishments, and over time it kind of learns to do the thing that you're trying to guide it toward.
Yeah, and I know, obviously this is a question that could go just like super super deep in the weeds, but like at a high level, just since our listeners obviously aren't going to be AI experts. Can you give a quick overview of just like how AI works? Like when somebody goes to Chat GPT or something like that, and they put in a query, like what's really happening there?
So for something like ChatGPT, something that's generative, uh, it has been trained on just an enormous corpus of data, just text from the internet that's been fed through this huge neural network, and through that training process, that GPT model creates, in air quotes, an understanding of language. And if a certain question is presented, it uses that understanding that it has built to really essentially just predict what the next word in the response would be. So it's really answering questions sort of one word at a time, but it's been fed with so much information that it's just really, really good at putting together a coherent response.
I've only played with it just a little bit, but it's been incredible to me what it's able to do. But at the same time, some of what comes out of it uh, is a little weird stylistically and that sort of thing. And obviously, critical thinking isn't what it is going to be good at. And I've run into some of those use cases too, where I've tried to use it for things that it's not really fit for. So um, if if you could wave a magic wand and have every business owner understand like one thing about AI, what would that one thing be?
Oof. I guess it's it's hard to distill that down to one thing, because there are really a broad number of use cases for it. But I think the biggest sticking point that I see with a lot of organizations that are trying to get started with AI, it's that they don't have the data ready to support the training of a model or ongoing work with it. So quality of your data that you start with is paramount. You aren't going to be able to successfully make use of particularly a machine learning model if you're not training it with high quality data that has that predictive signal that you're looking for.
So it's that old adage that garbage in, garbage out. It still rings true.
Exactly.
So we've got some callers waiting here on the phone to ask us some questions. You ready to go to the phones?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Let's go.
Do the cybersecurity risks to your business have you confused? Visit Focivity.com/podcast. That's FOCIVITY.com/podcast and sign up to be a caller on a future episode.
All right. Our first caller today is Danny from Newark. Hello, Danny. Welcome to the show. How can we help you?
Yeah, first I love the show. I think it's great. I'm in this particular situation of, smaller company, bootstrapped. We don't take VC. So naturally that comes with every single dollar counts, So how do I, and it's a thing, like every time that we want to go and we want to talk to potential clients and they ask us different questions about risk and things like that. How do I, as a small business, how do I quantify my actual risks specific to my business model and not just have to read 800 articles that, one, generalize everything and are most likely generalizing it towards a larger enterprise? I don't know how to filter that stuff out, and I don't know how to really get a grasp on that.
That is a very good question, and actually something that surprisingly a lot of organizations don't think about up front. They want to start playing with the cool new thing, and then realize further down the road that they've dug themselves a bit of a hole that, in terms of managing risk. The kinds of risks to look out for really depend on how you're using a technology like AI. I think one of the biggest problems that I see people face is creating bias in models that they build, and that can be completely unintentional, but just an artifact of potential bias that's been introduced into the data by humans that have put it in. in an example, I suppose, would be maybe a model like maybe an HR kind of model, like maybe you're using some kind of an AI system to evaluate candidates that are applying for a job or something like that. I think there are a lot of tools that are starting to introduce some kind of a feature like that, and you can run into instances where the model could be biased against people that live in certain areas or different genders. And one of the things that we found working with a lot of these companies over the past few years, the model doesn't necessarily need to know those things about the person. Like a model can be biased against somebody based on gender by picking up on what we call proxy features, where you might see this person went to an all-female college, and that piece of data will cause the model to react a certain way. So being able to identify situations where the model is being unfair, that's a big component of risk. There's also risk in data leakage. If you're dealing with data about people that needs to be kept private, sometimes feeding that kind of data through an AI system exposes you to potential legal risk, especially when you're using a tool like ChatGPT or something that's API based, where you're sending your data out to a third party for them to process it and give you a result. So being mindful of what kind of data is being shared across those boundaries is also very important.
And I think one of the risks that comes up with this too, especially in small orgs, is like this concept of shadow IT, where folks are just worried about getting the job done, and everybody's moving quick, and somebody thinks, man, it could be anybody in a small organization, pulls up ChatGPT, pastes a bunch of information into it, gives it a prompt, it spits out some stuff. Hey, great, we've created whatever this document we needed was. And they don't give any thought to the fact that the information they just pasted in was potentially a bunch of private data that they shouldn't have, customer information, or maybe just internal proprietary data that's now been shared with this AI tool. Part of this is made better because vendors like Microsoft have started to release through their Microsoft 365 platform access to some of these AI tools that your data stays within your tenant in Office 365. So it's a little bit less concerning there. But the other data leakage thing that I've seen come up lately is where folks take an AI tool of some sort, maybe a bot, customer service bot on their website, and it's linked with other internal systems so that it has access to be able to do customer service. But the problem is now that bot, through creative prompt writing and question asking, can potentially pass data from within the company that it has access to, but it's not necessarily supposed to share, pass it out. And folks have figured out ways to do strange things with prompts and repeat prompts over, different things where all of a sudden the thing starts kind of puking out training data, and training data translates to the internal data that was fed into it to train the model. So training data in that case means your internal documents that it had access to look at to be able to do that stuff. So there are definitely some risks that you've got to be paying attention to. And I think, data leakage, both, people being able to trick it into giving it data it's not supposed to, but also people putting data into the system that they weren't supposed to. And, some of this comes down to education within your organization and, how you classify the data, make sure people know certain types of data can and can't be used with this, what tools you are and are not allowed to use. And part of it comes down to making sure that if you're going to expose AI tools externally, like that chat bot, that it doesn't have access to everything you've got. You're not just connecting it to a huge data pool, like you're only giving it access to the specific things that it is going to need. And even then, that may not be totally safe at this point. So this is all very, still very early in the mass adoption. So
it's been crazy to see all of the jailbreaking techniques that people have come up with, and not just for the text-based models, but even like the image generation. There are lots of bizarre ways that people can construct these prompts and get the models to do things that nobody nobody thought they'd be able to do because of guardrails that we try to build around.
Which I suppose also introduces like copyright issues, because if all of a sudden something too closely matches an original photograph that's copyrighted by a photographer, or original text that is copyrighted by the author, and it's being spit out into something and gets used in some commercial thing or an advertisement, there's potentially some risk there too with AI, is who really owns that intellectual property that's coming out of it.
Yeah, I could turn this into a 3-hour conversation pretty easily if we stay on that topic.
But things to be aware of, and obviously I think in those areas too, this is one of those areas where I think legal counsel may be able to help with some of this stuff if you can find a lawyer that is really familiar with the law and this stuff to understand, especially the copyright and the potential data disclosure risks there. Yeah. Did you have another?
Oh yeah, I was so busy listening to you guys answering, I got lost in the sauce there for a second. And that your last comment really kind of leads into the other thing that I was curious about. So I mean, I have a team, right? Highly technical. That's what I rely on them on. I'm doing more of the business side, but I'm still interested, and I still want to try to keep on top and be able to funnel these things to my team. Do you have suggestions for where I can actually go to find out how much of what I'm reading is useful and how much of it is not, but in plain English, right? Like, not to, I like where I come in life, but, a lot of the technical jargon, you really start to get lost in it. You have resources, or you have places you go that can really just be like, all right, it's a very technical topic, obviously, but like as plain English as can be.
One of the challenges with that is that, there's a lot of content that's highly technical for the people that are kind of on the cutting edge of the research and really interested in the bits and bytes of it. And then there's a lot of content that's marketing fluff, and there isn't a ton that's in the middle. But one thing that I can definitely recommend, there are some courses that are targeted at just normal, like, non-technical folks to kind of educate about AI systems and how they work. In particular, what I was looking for on Coursera, Andrew Ng has some machine learning courses. And I've gone through those in the past to see how technical the content was, and recommend that content to. And I think it's a great place for business leaders, especially like people that want to implement this kind of technology, but you're not going to be sitting there writing code. It kind of gives that high level overview of how things work.
Awesome. Fantastic. That's exactly really what I'm looking for to funnel that. No, I really appreciate y'all's time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danny, for coming on the show. Appreciate it. Great questions, and prompted some good conversation here. So appreciate it. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you later. And our next caller on the phone today is Larissa from Palm Springs. Oh, that sounds wonderful because it's all cold and snowy here where I am today. Yeah. So, how can we help you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor to be with you, and it's a great show. And I've learned already from what y'all have shared with Danny from Newark. I've got two questions today. The first one is very related to Danny's first question. Just as a quick background, I work in cybersecurity, actually. I work in government risk and compliance and policy for defense and energy. But I'm also a teacher and a coach for micro small businesses, right? Solopreneurs and people with maybe 5 or less seats, the people who don't really usually get security tools made for them. The kind of the biggest risk that they face in their threat environment usually is ransomware, getting locked up and locked out, either themselves or through something that a customer, a close touch customer has done. There's a lot of fear out there. And I guess from your perspective, what is it that we can expect from AI getting involved in ransomware lockup attempts, given that our adversaries are already doing such a great job? It's so easy to get the fruit off the tree.
This is something that honestly keeps me up at night. The rapid acceleration of the development of especially these generative technologies has just it's gone so far beyond the point that it's easy to not even just from a business perspective, but just from being a citizen of the world. You're so exposed to so many kinds of attacks now that that are going to be so much more sophisticated than anything that we've seen before. It's for the people that have experienced the pain of trying to help an elderly relative not fall victim to one of these like gift card scams or whatever. Good luck protecting them from a panicked phone call in the voice of their grandchild asking for an immediate wire transfer to get them out of some emergency. Those kinds of attacks are happening now. Because voice impersonation is so simple now with very little training data. So yeah, the landscape of what we need to watch out for is definitely going to grow quite a bit in the coming years, and I think it's kind of it's kind of funny that a lot of the safeguards that we can build against those kinds of threats are also going to come from AI. Giving folks the ability to identify messages or content that might be generated by another AI system. It's very scary, and the thing that makes me sad is that I don't have like a good answer for like how to protect against it, because it's just one of those situations where the bad guys have the same awesome tools that the good guys have, and we're just going to have to kind of play catch up as we see how they make malicious use of that technology.
One of the things that I see too is like the way that we train folks for instance, to look for phishing emails is you watch for errors, because a lot of them are maybe non-native English speakers and that sort of thing. So like there's just little things in the way things that are phrased that are just a little goofy from translation from one language to another. AI eliminates that to a large extent and allows non-native speakers to write very good, well written, but also like stylistically correct, because they could train it off of the types of things that system generated stuff from Microsoft has. So, your Microsoft or your Google system generated things that come out, like they can use this to create whatever they want that looks just like those, but that can build in, kind of the urgency and other things. So there's still certain things you can watch for, like for, a sense of urgency that they try to instill, but it's going to make it much harder for not just for professionals, to identify, but I mean, much, much harder for folks that aren't the techies. And somebody asked me several years ago about one of the things that I was most worried about upcoming kind of changing threats. And at the time I was saying deep fakes, because we'd get to a point where we couldn't trust anything we saw or heard on the internet. I'm a technologist. I never said I was a good technologist, because the piece that I missed in that was AI and the speed at which people are going to be able to pull this stuff up in real time or near real time to do this, to do those phone calls and voice changing and videos of people that are indistinguishable from real, but they end up generated by AI, and they don't take days or weeks or hours or months to create. They take seconds. I completely didn't connect the culmination of those two. So I was half right, but and I feel like with businesses that brings in risk, PR risks. With some executive of a business or the owner of a business, some video is released that they're doing something or saying something that is completely falsified, but it could destroy entire businesses potentially if all of a sudden people see that and are like, I'm never going to shop there again. If something goes viral, like, I mean, there's all sorts of risks that are being brought up with this that aren't even considered. I think for small businesses, though, like the data leakage and stuff that we were talking about with the prior caller, leaking internal data through tools that you're exposing to the internet to provide a service for a customer, data leakage into the system by a helpful employee who's trying to just get their job done, and they go dump internal sensitive data into one of these things. And then also these risks that the bad guys are going to use them to scam and be criminals. I don't want to call them hackers, because I like to use the term hacker to mean for the people who are learning how systems work, to learn how to bend them and make them do things they're not intended to do, to understand them and learn how to protect them. And that's not a criminal. Like, hacking isn't illegal. Being a criminal, that's illegal. And so at the end of the day, though, like, we're up against living, breathing people that, just like Brent said, they got the same tools that the good guys have. And I feel like it's going to get worse. I don't want to be scary to folks, like, because I hate trying to scare people. Like, my general attitude with security is to always talk about in the positive and what you can do. And this is one of those areas where I'm really not sure yet either.
I mean, there a couple things that come to mind. I think the social aspect of it, like we really need to normalize fact checking and follow ups. Not even just in the realm of potential misinformation, but in the case of targeted phishing attacks or anything like that. It's I think there's already a lot of training that goes into, like, if you get the text message from your CEO saying like, oh, you need to, buy $5,000 worth of so-and-so gift cards for some prize pool or whatever, like, those kinds of things are pretty obvious, but they're like you said, there could be more benign looking targeted attacks now. And it's going to be so important for people to just follow up with the person directly, just to verify, did this come from you? And it's it's something that I think a lot of people view as silly because we've only seen like the extreme examples of it, but it's going to get a lot worse and a lot harder to detect. From a tech perspective, we need to bring back PGP. Everybody, like, not just for interpersonal communications, but for news. We need to start getting our information from a signed, trusted source, and make sure that we can verify where everything came from instead of just absorbing random content that could have been generated and dropped on social media or whatever. It's we're just going to have to get very, very I guess, I don't know, vigilant, very, very defensive of what those lines of communication and information gathering are. And yeah, because like you said, it's insane how easy it is to generate very, very authentic looking information at this point.
Thank you. I have a quick follow-up on something that is like a lightning round follow-up question from something that both Brent and AC just mentioned. You both said, like, take a positive action, reach out, go one-to-one. And even though that's more labor intensive, that's actually a point of strength for small businesses, right? Because like the reason that, people will hire you or me as a consultant is because they trust us, because I'm doing something to build up that trust. Do you think there's a way to spin this into the positive, whether it's putting a little risk reduction video out on your own website or having your little Facebook bot say, here are some of the things I will never do, I will never ask you. And if you want to verify that, please reach out to me directly. Here's my, what do you think about that kind of approach? I mean, I'm not asking for legal advice, but, what do you think about the approach?
I think that makes a lot of sense, to kind of establish those kinds of expectations for how you, as especially a security consultant, how you would interface with the folks that you're working with, and I think that's a great opportunity to like I said, normalize some of those verification sort of actions, and maybe instilling that into people to kind of like carry across other aspects of their lives too, and not just this one interaction.
Wow, thank you.
And that verification, for Brent mentioned a tool called PGP that was originally built to help encrypt and secure email. Because email is a technology that has been around for a very long time. And it originated at a time when there was a lot of trust in the network before the internet became what it is today. And so PGP was a tool that was created, number one, to encrypt information, so you could send encrypted emails across a network and not worry about that being intercepted at any of the hops through these complex networks, because the internet's just a network of networks, lots of hops, that stuff goes through. So protect it that way. But the other big thing for PGP was that the information was signed cryptographically or electronically. It was a digital signature, much like when you sign with DocuSign or something like that, that could be verified that the person who you think it was that created this information was in fact the one who created it, and it hasn't been mutated or modified in some way. And that person, like Larissa is coming, like you could post a piece of information on your website, now granted, this isn't quite ready for, I think, prime time of non-technical folks, but you would post this piece of information potentially on your website that's what we will call a public key. That public key can then be used by anybody to validate the signature on the information you put out. And I think we will probably start seeing businesses and especially media outlets start signing their stuff so that you can tell that this article hasn't been adjusted. This picture is legitimately the first one. There's a lot of folks that don't like blockchain technologies, and blockchain is just another form of database. But one of the key things with blockchain is it allows a public accessible database in a way that you don't have to trust the other people who are maintaining and accessing it because of the way it works. Now, there are problems, technical problems, environmental problems. There's lots of issues with blockchain. This is all still early in development. And the use cases for things like non-fungible token NFTs, these people trade in monkey pictures and stuff on the internet. But those monkey pictures are like signed with like a digital title. Like some of this stuff over time, with maybe some differences to the way the blockchains work, could allow us to have a broad, publicly accessible database that isn't maintained by a single authority, and that would allow folks to keep track of sort of these signatures and these private keys and handle some of this validation and handle the unique the identification of a device, of something, as being real, legitimate. Like we're already seeing it being used in supply chains to identify the source of high-end coffee as it's being shipped through a supply chain. Like there's ways that these things are starting to be used. We could also look at our digital supply chains for media through this, and businesses like we're not at a point right now where the tools out there for a small business can do this, but I'd like to see at some point, I hope to see some point where businesses can do this stuff and they can sign the stuff they put out. And if a fake video is not signed properly or something, that it could be traced back to who it was that created it, or with some amount of plausible deniability that, that's fake. That is not real. Don't shut me down.
You just nailed it. I mean, plausible deniability is one of the only risk mitigation techniques that the smallest businesses can afford.
Yeah, this is, I don't want to scare people, but this is kind of scary times. But it's also super exciting because these tools are going to change the world. Like when we think about all of these things that are developing concurrently right now, like, and they're all pretty new, 10, 15, 20 years from now, like we may not recognize, like we may look back and be like, God, 10 years ago, I can't believe that was only 10 years ago when we were still doing that. I think we're going to be at a totally different point, but like these tech things, just they've got to develop more and merge before they can be usable. And sort of like Danny was saying, and we were talking earlier, there's so much marketing out there for this that trying to see through it and understand, it's not magic. It's not a solve every problem thing right now. And anybody tries to tell you it is, they're selling you snake oil or something.
It's more a signal that a lot of companies are using just to say, like, we're not falling behind technologically, like we're participating in this too, even in the case that it's not necessary, like Microsoft's new mandate for the the Copilot key that's going to be added to all PC keyboards. They aren't happy with just that Windows key anymore. Like there are going to be, I think, sort of a lot of silly things that happen in the near term, but yeah, the advancement of this technology, and then all of these different disciplines coming together to build more capable, intelligent agents that can help us with like day-to-day things. I'm very excited, but yeah, folks need to know to kind of watch out and be aware that the malicious capabilities are real. Like it's not something that what one pair of eyes can easily pick out. So yeah, that's vigilance, but also excitement, because it's going to get really cool too.
Thank you so very much for both of your time and mind share. I know that the people that I work with are going to be very grateful because I got smarter. I'm very grateful to you.
Yay.
And I hope you both get some better weather and a good weekend.
Yes.
Thanks. Same to you.
All right.
You can send us a little bit of your good weather from Palm
I'm sending
Springs.
you the sunshine. Take care, you guys.
Man, those were fantastic questions from our callers. Like, thank you so much to our callers for coming with questions and prompting that amazing conversation. Do you have any final thoughts? You know, if we think back at what we talk about or conversations here with the callers, any sort of parting thoughts or takeaways that you want folks to make sure they remember, coming from this?
Um, I mean, really, I think I definitely encourage folks to not be afraid to dip their toes into this kind of technology. Um, there are a lot of tools that are becoming available that can help folks that don't have highly technical teams still take advantage of this kind of technology. A lot of like auto ML tools and things like that can help abstract away some of the highly technical tasks that go into using AI. Um, and but also keeping in mind data quality, making sure that you're able to properly represent the thing that you want to maybe predict. It's important to kind of build a good data gathering practice as well, and obviously being mindful of um, where that data is being sent, as we discussed quite a bit today.
Yeah, I think the real takeaway as we think through, kind of as scary as this is and as fast as this stuff is changing, it is going to be world changing. Like these things this is going to continue to happen quickly. And the folks who learn how to embrace it and learn how these tools work, like it's almost going to become the new literacy in a way. And that if you resist now, like you're going to be playing catch up for a long time potentially. So even though it is scary, you know, don't let that stop you from exploring this and looking to where you can use this as a force multiplier in your business. Just make sure that you're going into it eyes wide open and just think about how it could be misused, and just know that these technologies aren't inherently safe, and that as you decide to use AI in your organization, just make sure you're asking the questions of the vendors and other folks of like, understand the risks. If I buy this, what are the risks as we implement this in my organization? And keeping in mind just that it's not all just unicorns and rainbows. We got to try to make sure we stay safe. And so I think that was ultimately kind of my takeaway, is just opening people's eyes to the stuff's really cool and it's coming fast. It's not, it's a double-edged sword, or can be, and just make the best of it. And then one last thing, Brent, where can folks find you online if they want to reach out or contact you somehow, or follow you?
Well, I have actually recently reduced my social media footprint quite a bit. You can certainly find me on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to me over email at bhinks@gmail.com.
So thank you so much, Brent, for coming on the show with me today. This was a lot of fun. It was amazing to get to hang out and geek out with you here. And I want to say thank you to each of you listening today. Our listeners are also amazing, and we really appreciate you taking the time to listen to the show. If you like what we're doing and you find it valuable, please, please, please share it with others. You sharing and telling others about the show and the information that's in the show is how we're going to help reach more people with this information and try to make things just a little bit better and a little bit of difference every day. So I am Accidental CISO, and until next time, stay mindful.
Don't miss our next episode. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app and follow us on social media. Visit Focivity.com/podcast. That's FOCIVITY.com/podcast for show information and links to our social media pages. This has been the Mindful Business Security Show, brought to you by Focivity.